The message came through at midnight Earth Standard Time. It was weak and broken, filled with static and fear. Someone was calling for help across the stars. Day-Wan sat in his office at the Terran Strike Force headquarters. He was tired. Command meetings always wore him out. He was about to leave when his computer screen flashed red, an emergency signal. He leaned forward and played the message. "This is the Velthran Collective. We are under attack. Our worlds are burning. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. The Kraul are here. They are destroying everything. Our children are dying. Please help us." The voice was not human. It had a musical quality, like wind chimes in a storm. But the fear in it was universal. Day-Wan had heard that kind of fear before. During the border wars when he was younger, it was the sound of someone watching their world end. He forwarded the message to command and waited. An hour later, his phone rang. "Captain Day-Wan, you're being activated. The Council won't respond in time. Maybe they won't respond at all. Earth Command wants you to take your team and go." "Answer that call." Day-Wan felt his heart beat faster. This was it. Humanity's first real mission beyond their own space. "How many ships do I get?" "One, the Indomitable. She's tough, but she's all we can spare. The rest of the fleet is spread too thin. You'll have your strike team and a crew of 200. That's it. Against the Kraul swarm?" Day-Wan knew the stories. Everyone did. The Kraul were monsters. They ate entire planets. They had been terrorizing the galaxy for thousands of years. Yeah, against them. "Can you do it?" Day-Wan thought about that voice in the message. Those children dying. He thought about what it meant to be human. To hear a call for help and actually answer it. "Yes, sir. We'll do it." 2 hours later, Day-Wan stood in the briefing room aboard the Indomitable. His team sat around the table. These were the people he trusted most in the universe. Ji-Woo was his second in command. She was small but fierce, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She could look at a battlefield and see patterns others couldn't. She made plans faster than anyone he had ever met. Hyun-Sik was their heavy weapons specialist. He was big and quiet, with a dry sense of humor that came out at the strangest times. He could carry weapons that would break most people's backs. He never complained and never quit. Young Mi was their medic. She had saved all their lives at one point or another. She was brilliant, always reading about alien biology and medicine. She could kill you or save you with equal skill. Most of the time, she chose to save. Tae-Yang was their pilot. He was the youngest, barely 25, with a cocky smile and reflexes like lightning. He could fly anything. Ships, shuttles, fighters. If it had engines, he could make it dance. He was also reckless, which gave Ji-Woo constant headaches. Day-Wan played the message for them. The room went quiet. Young Mi's hand went to her mouth. Hyun-Sik's jaw tightened. Tae-Yang stopped smiling. Ji-Woo just nodded slowly. "The Velthran are a peaceful species," Day-Wan explained. 3 different races that formed a collective based on art and philosophy. They have light defenses. The Kraul hit them hard and fast. Their fleets are being destroyed. Their evacuation ships are being hunted. "How far?" Ji-Woo asked. 6 days at maximum speed. "What does the Galactic Council say?" Young Mi asked. "They're debating. They've been debating for 3 days already. Maybe they'll send help in a month. Maybe never. Most of their forces are busy elsewhere." "So we're it," Hyun-Sik said quietly. "We're it," Day-Wan confirmed. Tae-Yang leaned back in his chair. "One ship, one team. Against the Kraul swarm. The same Kraul that have destroyed dozens of civilizations. The ones even the big scary species are afraid of." "That's right. Cool. When do we leave?" Day-Wan almost smiled. That was so typically Tae-Yang. 1 hour. "Get your gear ready. This is going to be bad." Ji-Woo pulled up a star map. The Velthran system has 3 inhabited planets. Population about 4 billion total. The Kraul usually deploy harvest ships, big organic vessels that land and start stripping resources. They'll have biofighters for space superiority, and ground forces for hunting civilians. "Civilians," Young Mi repeated. "They target civilians?" "The Kraul don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They just consume. Everything, the people, the animals, the plants. They turn it all into fuel and biomass for more Kraul." The room went even quieter. Humans understood war. They had fought each other for thousands of years. But this was something different. This was extermination as a business model. "What are our orders?" Hyun-Sik asked. "Save as many as we can. Stop the Kraul if possible. And show the galaxy what humanity can do." "No pressure then." Tae-Yang muttered. Ji-Woo was already making notes. We'll need to hit them fast. Surprise is our only advantage. The Krall have never fought humans before. They don't know what we can do. Neither does anyone else, Young Mi pointed out. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for what, 10 years? We've never been in a real war out here. Then they're about to learn, Daewon said. The Velthrin called for help. That's all we need to know. We're going. The team dispersed to prepare. Daewon stayed in the briefing room looking at the star map. The Velthrin system was just a cluster of lights on a screen. But he kept hearing that voice. Those children are dying. Please help us. The galactic community was cautious. They calculated risks and benefits. They formed committees and held votes. They moved slowly and carefully as species do when they have existed for millions of years. Humanity was different. They were young and fast and maybe a little crazy. When someone called for help, humans had a bad habit of actually showing up. An hour later, the Indomitable left Earth orbit. She was a strike carrier, built for fast insertion and heavy combat. She wasn't the biggest ship in the fleet, but she was tough. Her hull was covered in weapons. Her engines could push her to speeds that made other species nervous. Daewon stood on the bridge as Earth fell away behind them. 200 crew members, one strike team, and him, against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The communications officer looked up. Captain, we're receiving a message from Galactic Council headquarters. Put it through. A face appeared on the screen. It was a Kellan, one of the older species. They looked like walking crystals, all angles and light. This one was named Valthos. He was some kind of military coordinator. Captain Daewon, the Council has become aware of your mission. We must advise against this course of action. The Krall swarm is extremely dangerous. Your vessel is insufficient for this task. We recommend you return to Earth and wait for proper fleet support. Daewon kept his face neutral. How long until that support arrives? Valthos paused. We estimate 4 to 6 weeks. The Velthrin don't have 4 to 6 weeks. That is unfortunate. However, sacrificing your vessel and crew will not change the outcome. It will simply add human casualties to the Velthrin casualties. With respect, sir, we're going anyway. Valthos looked confused. That expression translated well even across species. You understand this is not a sanctioned mission? Earth will receive no support if you fail. No retaliation against the Krall. This is entirely at your own risk. We understand. Then why go? You barely know the Velthrin. There are no treaties. No alliances. No trade agreements. Why risk everything? Daewon thought about how to explain it. How do you tell an ancient crystalline being about the human concept of doing what's right, just because it's right? Because they called for help, he said simply. That's reason enough. He ended the transmission. Ji-Woo looked at him from her station. That's going to cause political problems, she said. Probably. We'll worry about that if we survive. The Indomitable jumped to faster than light speed. The stars stretched and bent. They were committed now. 6 days to the Velthrin system. 6 days to prepare for a fight they probably couldn't win. But they were going anyway. Because that's what humans do. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velthrin system. What Daewon saw made his stomach turn. The system was on fire. 3 planets orbited a yellow sun. All 3 were covered in cities that glowed with soft blue light. Or they had been. Now those cities were dark. Smoke rose from the surfaces in massive columns. Space around the planets was filled with debris. Broken ships tumbled through the void. Some were still burning despite the lack of air. Report, Daewon said quietly. Ji-Woo worked her console, her face grim. I'm counting 47 Krall bioships. Various sizes. The big ones are harvest vessels. They've landed on all 3 planets and started extraction operations. The smaller ones are hunters. They're chasing down evacuation ships. On the main screen, they watched a Velthrin civilian transport try to escape. It was a beautiful ship, all curves and grace. It looked like art. The Krall hunter that chased it looked like a nightmare. All organic armor and weapons that grew from its hull like tumors. The hunter caught the transport and tore it apart with bioplasma weapons. No survivors. How many Velthrin ships are left? Daewon asked. Maybe 20. They're trying to cover the evacuation, but their weapons barely scratch the Krall armor. I'm watching them die one by one. Tae-Yang was in the pilot seat. His usual cocky attitude was gone. Captain, we can't fight 47 ships. Even with surprise, the math doesn't work. Then we change the math, Daewon said. Ji-Woo, what's the priority target? Jiwoo highlighted one of the planets on the screen. Velthrin Prime, the largest population center. There's a harvest platform on the surface already processing civilians. If we're going to save anyone, we start there. Hyunsik, weapon status? Hyunsik's deep voice came through the comm. He was in the weapons control room. Railguns are hot. Missiles are loaded. Point defense is online. We're ready to hurt something. Good, because we're going in loud. Daewon looked at his crew. Young faces, human faces. They all knew this might be suicide. None of them looked away. All hands, battle stations. This is what we came for. Let's show the crawl what happens when you mess with someone humanity cares about. The Indomitable surged forward. Taeyang pushed the engines hard. The carrier accelerated toward the battle at speeds that made the superstructure groan. The crawl noticed them immediately. 5 bioships broke from their hunting patterns and moved to intercept. They probably thought the Indomitable was another Velthrin ship, easy prey. They learned differently very quickly. The Indomitable opened fire at maximum range. Railgun rounds moving at a fraction of light speed, punched through crawl armor like it was paper. The bioships didn't expect that kind of firepower. They didn't have time to adapt. 3 of them exploded. The other 2 tried to turn away. Hyunsik's missiles caught them. The warheads were designed by humans who had spent centuries figuring out how to kill each other efficiently. They worked just as well on aliens. The bioships came apart in flowers of flame. 5 down, Jiwoo reported. The rest of the swarm is reacting. They're converging on us, let them come, Daewon said. Taeyang, get us to the planet. Don't stop for anything. What followed was the most intense flying Taeyang had ever done. The Indomitable was a big ship, but he flew her like a fighter. He dodged between debris fields. He used destroyed Velthrin stations as cover. When Crawl bioships got too close, he spun the carrier to bring the maximum weapons to bear. The Indomitable's point defense systems came alive. Thousands of small-caliber rounds filled space, creating walls of lead that shredded Crawl biofighters. Hyunsik coordinated the defensive fire while simultaneously targeting larger vessels with the main guns. His calm voice never wavered, even as the ship shook from impacts. Taking hits on the port side. Armor is holding, firing solution on Biocruiser Delta. Guns free, the Indomitable's main railguns spoke. The Biocruiser, a massive thing the size of a small moon, took 4 rounds through its center mass. It shuddered and began to drift, leaking atmosphere and biological fluids. A Velthrin officer managed to get through on communications. His voice was shocked. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. You just killed a crawl cruiser. That's impossible. This is Captain Daewon of the human strike carrier Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Silence. Then the Velthrin spoke again, his voice filled with wonder. You came. The humans actually came. Hold your positions. We're going to the surface. Keep your people alive until we can evacuate them. The Indomitable broke through the crawl blockade and entered Velthrin Prime's atmosphere. The planet was beautiful, even burning. Cities of crystal and light. Gardens that stretched for miles. Oceans of deep blue. All of it under attack. Daewon saw the harvest platform through the clouds. It was enormous, a living factory that had rooted itself into the planet's crust. Conveyor systems made of organic matter moved captured Velthrin toward processing centers. Daewon didn't want to think about what happened there. Drop pods ready? He asked. Youngmi's voice came through. My team is loaded. Medical supplies secured. Ready to deploy. Hyunsik? My squad is ready. Heavy weapons loaded. Time to go to work. Jiwoo? Tactical team ready. Let's do this. Daewon left the bridge and headed for his own drop pod. He sealed his combat armor and checked his weapons. The armor was human-made, tough and practical. It didn't look pretty like Velthrin technology. It was designed to keep you alive while you killed the enemy. All teams, this is Daewon. We're dropping into hell. The Velthrin are counting on us. Earth is watching. Show them what humanity can do. Go loud, go hard, and bring our people home safe. Drop in 3, 2, 1, execute. The drop pods launched. They were essentially armored coffins with rockets attached. They screamed through the atmosphere at terminal velocity. G-forces crushed Daewon into his seat. His vision went gray at the edges. Then the retro rockets fired. The pod slammed into the ground so hard his teeth rattled. The door blew off. Daewon was moving before his brain fully caught up. He was in the middle of a war zone. Crawl ground forces were everywhere. They looked like a nightmare version of insects, walking on too many legs with weapons that grew from their bodies. They were hurting Velthrin civilians, pushing them toward the harvest platform. The Velthrin were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. They had large eyes and delicate features. They weren't built for fighting. They were artists and philosophers. Right now they were just terrified. Day One opened fire. His rifle spat plasma rounds that cooked Kral warriors in their shells. The rest of his team deployed around him, creating a defensive perimeter. The Kral turned to face this new threat. They had never seen humans before. They charged forward with the confidence of predators who had never met real resistance. They died quickly. Humans had been fighting wars since they discovered rocks and sharp sticks. These Kral might be tough, but they weren't ready for coordinated military action from a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting murder. Jiwoo directed fire with cold precision. Hyunsik, heavy weapons on that cluster. Youngmi pushed forward to the civilians. Taeyang air support would be nice. On it, Taeyang's voice crackled. His fighter screamed overhead, missiles turning Kral positions into craters. The team fought their way to a group of trapped Velthrin. There were hundreds of them, huddled behind the ruins of a building. Youngmi reached them first, her armor covered in Kral blood. I'm a medic, human medic. We're here to help. Who's in charge? An older Velthrin stepped forward. She had been injured, her arm burned by plasma fire. She stared at Youngmi like she was seeing a ghost. You came. You actually came, but why? We have no alliance with your kind. No treaties. No bonds of trade or culture. Why would you risk yourselves? Youngmi checked the burn while keeping her rifle ready with her other hand.
Because you called for help.
That's all the reason we need. The Velthrin elder's eyes filled with tears. In her long life, she had never encountered such a concept. Help given freely without calculation or contract. The galaxy debates while we die, but you just came? Yeah, Youngmi said, applying medical gel to the burn. That's kind of our thing. Now we need to get you and your people out of here.
Can you walk?
I can run if you need me to. Good, because we're about to do a lot of running. Daewon coordinated the evacuation. Taeyang brought down a shuttle, flying through fire that should have been impossible to survive. He landed in a clearing that was definitely too small, scraping paint off both sides of the shuttle. Everybody on board. Move, move, move. The Velthrin ran. The humans covered them, laying down fire that kept the Kral back. Hyunsik set up his heavy weapon and fired in controlled bursts, each one dropping a Kral warrior. They got 200 Velthrin onto the shuttle. Then 300. The shuttle was overloaded, but Taeyang didn't care. If it fits, it flies, he muttered, pushing the engines to maximum. The shuttle lifted off just as Kral reinforcements arrived. Plasma fire chased them into the sky. Taeyang dodged and weaved, his hands moving faster than thought. They made it back to the Indomitable. Barely. Daewon looked at the Velthrin they had saved. 300 lives. Against 4 billion in the system, it was nothing. But it was 300 people who would live to see tomorrow. The Velthrin elder approached him. Captain, I am Thelvora. I speak for... The Kral hive mind was old. It had existed for millions of years, consuming species after species. It had seen every form of resistance. Desperate last stands, clever ambushes, suicidal attacks. Nothing ever worked. The Kral always won, but these humans were different. The hive mind studied the data from the first engagement. The humans fought with a strange combination of careful planning and wild aggression. They used tactics the hive mind had never encountered. They took risks that made no logical sense, and they refused to retreat, even when retreat was the only logical option. The hive mind decided to test them further. It sent a combat formation to crush the human vessel and eliminate this curiosity. The humans had other ideas. 3 days after their arrival, the Indomitable had become a legend among the Velthrin. The human ship was everywhere at once. It would appear from behind a moon, destroy several Kral vessels, then vanish before reinforcements arrived. It protected evacuation convoys. It bombed harvest platforms. It was a constant thorn in the Kral operation. On the bridge, Daewon was exhausted. He had barely slept since they arrived. None of them had. But there was too much work to do. Too many people to save. Captain, we're picking up a distress call, the communications officer said. It's from a Velthrin stronghold on the northern continent. They say they're surrounded. About 3,000 civilians trapped there. Jiwoo pulled up the tactical display. That's a problem. The Kral have siege organisms surrounding the position. Big ones. And they have air superiority over that sector. What are siege organisms? Day One asked. Think of a tank the size of a building, organic armor 3 feet thick. Bioplasma cannons. The Crawl use them to crack hardened positions. Standard galactic doctrine says you don't fight them directly. You avoid them and wait for them to move on. We don't follow standard galactic doctrine, Day One said. How do we kill them? Young-Mi spoke up from the medical bay. She was treating wounded Velthrin but still monitoring the tactical channel. I've been studying Crawl biology from the samples we've collected. Their armor is tough, but it has a weakness. High heat causes their internal fluids to expand rapidly. If you can get a thermal charge inside the armor, they basically cook from the inside. Do we have thermal charges? Day One asked. No, Hyunsik said, but I can make some. Give me 2 hours and our entire supply of emergency heating units. You can weaponize heating units? Captain, I can weaponize a sandwich if you give me enough time. Trust me on this. 2 hours later, Hyunsik had created 12 improvised thermal bombs. They looked ugly and dangerous, which Daewon considered a good sign for explosives. These will work? He asked. Hyunsik shrugged. Probably, maybe. I learned this from a video game, so there's like a 60% chance we all die. Tae Yang laughed. I like those odds. Let's go save some people. They took 2 shuttles down to the planet. The stronghold was a Velthrin research facility built into a mountain. Beautiful architecture that was now scarred by plasma fire. The Kral had surrounded it with 6 siege organisms, massive creatures that pounded the facility's shields with bioplasma. Velthrin defenders fired back with light weapons that did nothing. They were brave but outmatched. It was only a matter of time before the shields failed. Daewon's team landed a kilometer away and moved in on foot. They stayed low, using the terrain for cover. Combat armor made them look like moving shadows. They split into 3 pairs. Each pair would take 2 siege organisms. It was a terrible plan. It had way too many points of failure, but it was the only plan they had. Daewon and Jiwoo approached their first target. The siege organism was the size of a small building, with legs like tree trunks and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. It was focused on the facility, not watching its flanks. Big mistake. Jiwoo placed the first thermal charge on the creature's leg joint, where the armor was thinnest. She armed it and signaled to Daewon. They ran. The explosion was beautiful. The charge melted through the armor and flooded the organism's interior with superheated gas. The creature made a sound like a building collapsing. Then it stopped moving. 1 down, Jiwoo said. That actually worked. Don't sound so surprised, Daewon replied. They hit the second siege organism the same way. This time the creature sensed them at the last second. It tried to turn, but it was too slow. The thermal charge detonated. The creature fell like a demolished building. Around the stronghold, the other teams were having similar success. Hyunsik and Young-Mi took down 2 more. Tae Yang and another team member got the last 2. 6 siege organisms dead in 15 minutes. The Velthrin defenders couldn't believe it. These creatures had been terrorizing them for days. The humans killed them like it was easy. The stronghold commander met them at the entrance. He was tall even for a Velthrin, with skin that shifted through different colors. His name was Korvan, and he looked at the humans like they were mythical creatures. You killed 6 siege organisms, with a squad of 6 soldiers. This is impossible. Apparently not, Jiwoo said. Now let's get your people out of here before the Kral send more. The evacuation took 3 hours. 3,000 Velthrin, including many children. Taeyang made multiple trips with the shuttles, each one more dangerous than the last. The Kral were getting wise to their tactics. On the last run, a Kral fighter squadron caught them. Taeyang pushed his shuttle into maneuvers that should have torn it apart. He flew through a narrow canyon at full speed, then up and over a mountain ridge. The Kral fighters followed, right into an ambush. The Indomitable had positioned itself in orbit directly above. When the Kral fighters cleared the ridge, Hyunsik hit them with every point defense weapon the carrier had. The fighters didn't stand a chance. Thanks for the assist, Taeyang called. Try not to need it so often, Hyunsik replied. Back on the Indomitable, Thelvora approached Young-Mi in the medical bay. The elder was helping treat wounded, her own injury already healed thanks to Young-Mi's care. I must understand, Thelvora said. Your species fights with such violence, such aggression, but also with such care for those you protect. How can both exist together? Young-Mi was running a scanner over a Velthrin child who had been burned. She didn't look up from her work. We're human. We're complicated. We can be the kindest species you'll ever meet or the most dangerous, often at the same time. The galaxy will fear you. Maybe. But they'll also know they can call us when they need help. Is this what humans call honor? Young me thought about that. Not exactly. It's simpler than honor. Someone needed help. We were able to help. So we did. That's just being decent. Thelvora watched the human medic work. Watched her split her attention between healing and monitoring the tactical situation. Watched her fingers move with practiced skill, saving a child she had never met before today. The Kraul have consumed hundreds of species. They have never been stopped. They have never retreated, but I think perhaps they have never faced humans before. They're about to learn what that means, Youngmi said. On the bridge, Daewon was planning the next operation when Valthos, the Galactic Council representative, called again. Captain Daewon, the Council has been monitoring your actions. We are impressed. You have saved 37,000 Velthran lives with a single vessel. This is unprecedented. Thank you, sir. But we're not done. No, you are not. Which brings me to a difficult point. The Council has decided not to intervene in the Velthran situation. We have determined that the cost of a full military response outweighs the strategic benefit. Daewon felt cold anger spread through his chest. You're abandoning them. We are making a calculated decision. The Kraul will move on eventually. The Velthran who escape will be offered refugee status. And the billions who can't escape? Valthos was quiet for a moment. That is unfortunate. But the galaxy must think of the greater good. The greater good, Daewon repeated. Right. Well, humanity has a different definition of that term. You cannot save them all, Captain. You are one ship. Watch us try. He ended the call. Jiwoo looked at him from her station. That's going to have consequences, she said. I don't care. We didn't come here to follow galactic politics. We came because people needed help. The Velthran are going to remember this. Humanity just showed them what real friendship looks like. Good. Maybe that's worth something. Over the next few days, the human team conducted operation after operation. They destroyed harvest platforms. They evacuated cities. They taught Velthran defense forces how to fight back. The Kraul casualties mounted. The hive mind began to realize something troubling. These humans were not going away. They were not tiring. They were not giving up. Instead, they were getting more effective with each engagement, and other species were watching. News of humanity's intervention spread through the galactic community. Most species were shocked. Some were inspired. A few were terrified. The humans had broken the unwritten rule of galactic society. You didn't risk everything for strangers. You calculated costs and benefits. You acted rationally. Humans apparently didn't believe in rational when children were dying. Korvan, the stronghold commander, spoke to Daewon after another successful evacuation. Captain, I must ask, what does humanity gain from this? Your ship is damaged. Your crew is exhausted. You have lost people in combat. And yet you continue. Why? Daewon looked at the Velthran. The convoy was supposed to be safe. 3 transport ships carrying Velthran children and their teachers, young ones rescued from a burning city. They were evacuating to the outer system where a refugee fleet was gathering. The Indomitable was providing escort, along with 2 Velthran defense ships. It should have been a simple run. Get the transports clear of the planet, then jump to safety. The Kraul had other plans. A biocruiser appeared from behind a moon. It was huge, covered in weapons, and it moved with terrible purpose. The Velthran defense ships moved to intercept, firing their light weapons. They might as well have been throwing rocks. The biocruiser ignored them. It targeted the transports instead. Daewon saw it happening. He screamed orders. Taeyang pushed the Indomitable to maximum speed. Yunsik fired every weapon they had. They were too far away, too slow. The biocruiser fired. Bioplasma beams, superheated and deadly, cut through 2 of the transports like paper. The ships came apart. No time for escape pods. No time for anything. 2,000 Velthran children died in an instant. The 3rd transport tried to run. The Kraul cruiser hunted it down methodically and destroyed it too. Another 1,000 children. Gone. The Indomitable arrived just in time to see the debris field. Pieces of the transports tumbling through space. Small bodies floating among the wreckage. Children's toys drifting in the void. The bridge was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Young Mi's voice came through the comm, breaking. "Captain, tell me someone survived, please." "No survivors," Jiwoo said quietly. Her voice was empty. "They're all gone." Daewon stared at the debris. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair so hard they creaked. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had seen death. He had caused death. But this was different. These were children, babies. The Krall had deliberately targeted them. Something changed in Daewon in that moment. Something fundamental. He felt it in his chest like ice water in his veins. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and absolutely cold. "Jiwoo. Find that cruiser, Captain." "Find that cruiser?" Jiwoo worked her console. She understood that tone. She had heard it once before during the border wars. It was the sound Daewon made when he stopped being a soldier and became something else. "Got it. It's heading back to the main Krall fleet. Follow it. All weapons hot." "Sir, if we engage the main fleet, we won't survive." "I didn't ask for survival estimates. I gave an order." The Indomitable turned and accelerated. In the weapons bay, Hyun-sik heard the order and felt the same cold fury. He loaded every missile they had left, armed every gun. This was no longer about tactics. This was about making the Krall pay. Taeyang pushed the engines past safety limits. "They killed kids," he said quietly. "They specifically targeted children." "Yeah," Daewon said. "So now we're going to show them what happens when you do that in front of humans." The biocruiser reached the main Krall fleet. Dozens of ships, all the firepower needed to destroy a civilization. The Indomitable arrived right behind it. The Krall expected the human ship to break off. No one was stupid enough to attack an entire fleet with a single carrier. Daewon rammed them instead. The Indomitable, moving at full speed, crashed into the biocruiser that had killed the children. The collision was catastrophic. The human ship's reinforced prow tore through organic armor. The cruiser came apart in sections, bleeding atmosphere and fluids. "All weapons fire at will," Daewon ordered. "Kill anything that moves." The Indomitable spun through the Krall fleet like a tornado of violence. Railguns fired non-stop. Missiles flew in every direction. Point defense systems created walls of lead. The human ship was dying, but it was taking as many Krall with it as possible. Hyun-sik abandoned all doctrine. He fired weapons in combinations that would make any military instructor scream. He didn't care about ammunition conservation or target priority. He just killed. Magazines at 40%. 30%, 20. "We're running out of ammunition, Captain." Then we use the ship itself as a weapon. Taeyang, ram anything big enough to hurt. On the planet's surface, the human strike teams went on the offensive too. Young Mai led her squad into a Krall hatchery complex. Places where the Krall grew their next generation of warriors. A Velthran officer tried to stop her. "Medic Young Mi, this violates galactic conventions on warfare. You cannot target reproduction facilities." Young Mi turned to look at him. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was ice. "They killed children. 3,000 children. Conventions are over." She placed charges throughout the hatchery. When they detonated, the entire complex collapsed. Thousands of Krall larvae died. Young Mi watched it burn and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just cold determination. The Velthran officer stared at her in horror. This gentle healer who had saved so many of his people had just committed an act of warfare that most species would consider too extreme. "What have you become?" he whispered. "Angry," Young Mi said simply. "Humans are dangerous when we're angry." In the sky above, Taeyang flew his fighter on a suicide run. His fighter was shot up, barely holding together. He had one missile left. He picked the biggest Krall harvest platform he could find and locked on. "This is for those kids," he said. He fired the missile and followed it in, guns blazing. The platform tried to shoot him down. He dodged and weaved, taking hits that should have killed him. The missile struck the platform's core. Taeyang's fighter was right behind it. The explosion was visible from orbit. The platform came apart, taking a Krall ground army with it. Taeyang's fighter tumbled through the blast, on fire and falling. "Taeyang, report," Daewon shouted. "I'm alive, mostly crash landing. Could use a pickup, hold position. We're coming for you." But the Indomitable was in bad shape. Half their systems were offline. Hull breaches on multiple decks, fires everywhere. They had given the Krall a bloody nose, but they had paid for it. The Krall hive mind, for the first time in millions of years, felt something like concern. These humans had lost all tactical sense. They fought like wounded animals, all rage and no reason. They accepted casualties that should have broken any species, and they were teaching the Velthrin how to fight back. All across the system, Velthrin defense forces were watching. They saw the humans refuse to retreat. They saw the humans trade their lives to protect Velthrin civilians. They saw the humans get angry when children died, and they learned. Velthrin ships stopped running and started fighting. They used tactics the humans taught them. They accepted damage to protect others. They started acting like soldiers instead of artists. The Kraul couldn't adapt fast enough. The hive mind had conquered passive species for so long, it had forgotten how to fight determined resistance. Jiwoo managed to get the Indomitable to Taiyang's location. They pulled him from the wreckage of his fighter. He was burned and broken but alive. Young Mai worked on him immediately, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. "You're an idiot," she told him while sealing his wounds. "Yeah, but I got the platform." 3,000 children, Taeyang. They killed 3,000 children. I know. That's why I crashed my fighter into them. Daewon gathered his team in what was left of the briefing room. They were all damaged, all exhausted, all running on anger and caffeine. "We can't keep this up," Jiwoo said. "The ship has maybe one more fight left in it, maybe." "Then we make it count," Daewon said. "Captain, we've done everything we could. We've saved 40,000 Velthrin. We've destroyed hundreds of Kraul vessels. We've taught them that humans don't abandon friends. Maybe it's time to withdraw and regroup." Daewon looked at his team. These people he would die for. These people who had followed him into hell because he asked them to. "You're right. We've done our job. Anyone who wants to leave, I'll order a shuttle to take you to the refugee fleet. No judgment. You've earned the right to survive." No one moved. "We're staying," Young Mi said. "Those children deserved better. The least we can do is finish what we started." Hyun Sik nodded. "Plus, I still have explosives left. Seems wasteful to leave now." Taeyang tried to sit up, then winced. "As soon as Young Mi says I can fly, I'm back in a fighter. The Kraul need to learn that you don't get to kill kids and walk away." Jiwoo smiled. It was a tired, sad smile. "Looks like we're all staying, Captain. Let's make it memorable." Daewon felt something in his chest loosen. Pride, maybe. Or love for these crazy humans who refuse to give up. "All right, then here's the plan. We're going to hit their main command ship, the biggest biovessel they have. We're going to kill it even if it kills us. And we're going to make sure the Kraul remember what happens when they mess with someone humanity protects." "That's a terrible plan," Jiwoo observed. "You have a better one?" "No, let's do it." The Kraul hive mind watched as the damaged human ship approached its command vessel. It couldn't understand. These humans were beaten. Their ship was dying. They should retreat. Instead, they attacked. The Indomitable, running on emergency power and human stubbornness, opened fire on the command ship. It was a one-sided fight. The humans were outgunned by orders of magnitude, but the Velthrin fleet arrived behind them. Dozens of ships fighting together for the first time, fighting the way the humans had taught them. And behind them came reinforcements, human reinforcements. Earth had sent the fleet. The tide was turning. The Earth fleet arrived like cavalry from ancient stories. 20 warships, all of them fresh and armed for battle. They had pushed their engines to the breaking point to get here. When Earth Command saw what was happening to the Indomitable, they had mobilized everything they could spare. The lead ship was the Defiant, commanded by Admiral Park. Her voice came over the comm, clear and strong. "Indomitable, this is Admiral Park. Sorry we're late to the party. Looks like you started without us." Daewon almost laughed. He was so tired he could barely think. "Better late than never, Admiral. We could use the help. I see that. Your ship looks like hell, Captain." "Yes, ma'am. But we're not done yet." "I can respect that. All ships, this is Park. Form up on the Indomitable. We're going to kill that command ship and show the Kraul that humanity doesn't forget and doesn't forgive. Weapons free." The combined human fleet hit the Kraul command vessel with everything they had. Railgun fire, missiles, plasma beams. The bioship was massive, the size of a small moon, but it couldn't withstand the concentrated firepower. The Velthrin fleet joined in. They had learned from the humans. They fought with coordination and courage. Ships that had been running just days ago now pressed the attack. The Kraul hive mind made a calculation. It had lost hundreds of bioships. The harvest operation was failing. The prey species had learned to fight back, and these humans would not stop. For the first time in recorded history, the Kraul swarm retreated. The bioships began withdrawing from the system. Some were destroyed as they tried to escape. Others made it to faster than light speed and vanished. The command vessel was the last to leave, badly damaged but still alive. The hive mind sent one message before it fled. It was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Humanity. Threat. Avoid. Then the Kraul were gone. On the bridge of the Indomitable, alarms were still blaring. Fires still burned in some sections. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had actually won. Day One sat in his command chair and finally let himself feel the exhaustion. They had been fighting for 7 days straight. 7 days of constant battle. And they had survived. Damage report, he said quietly. Jiwoo pulled up the data. We're at 15% combat effectiveness. Main engines are offline. Weapons are depleted. We have hull breaches on 12 decks. Life support is running on backup power. Captain, this ship is dead in space. We'll need a tow back to port. Casualties? Her voice went soft. 43 killed in action. 92 wounded. Considering what we faced, it could have been worse. 43 people. 43 humans who had volunteered to help strangers and paid the ultimate price. Day One would remember every name. He would write letters to their families. He would make sure their sacrifice meant something. The Velthrin. We saved approximately 62,000 civilians. The rest evacuated with the defense fleet. Total Velthrin casualties are estimated at 3.2 billion. Day One closed his eyes. 3 billion dead. It was a number too large to truly comprehend. But 62,000 were alive because his team had refused to give up. We did what we could, Young Mi said over the comm. She was still in the medical bay treating the wounded. It wasn't enough, but we did what we could. Admiral Park's ship pulled alongside the Indomitable. Captain Day One will tow you back to the rally point. You and your crew have earned a rest. What you did here will be remembered. The Galactic Council sent a message 3 hours later. Valthos appeared on screen, and for a crystalline being, he looked shaken. Captain Day One, the Council has been monitoring the situation. We must express our surprise at the outcome. The Kraul have never retreated before, never in recorded history. They retreated today, Day One said. Yes, because of your actions. One ship, one crew, held off an entire Kraul invasion fleet long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The tactical data from this engagement will be studied for generations. That's nice. Is there a point to this call? Valthos paused. The Velthrin Collective has requested a formal meeting with Earth's government. They wish to propose an alliance. A full alliance, not the typical patron-client relationship. They want to be equals with humanity. Good. They deserve it. Captain, do you understand what you have done? In galactic history, young species serve older species for thousands of years before being offered equality. The Velthrin are offering this after knowing humanity for 1 week. Maybe that says something about how the galaxy has been doing things, Day One said. The Velthrin called for help. We answered. We fought beside them. We bled for them. That's what allies do. The Council debated for days. You acted in hours. The Council calculated costs and benefits. You simply went. This is not how galactic civilization operates. Then maybe galactic civilization needs to change. Valthos was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps it does. The Council wishes to formally recognize humanity's actions. You have been invited to address the full assembly. I appreciate that. But right now I need to sleep for about 3 days. My crew needs medical care, and I have letters to write to the families of people who died doing the right thing. The transmission ended. Day One stood up and immediately had to steady himself on the chair. Jiwoo caught his arm. Easy, Captain. You're running on empty. We all are. Yeah, but we did it. We saved them. Day One looked at the Velthrin ships on the display. They were organizing their refugee fleet, beginning the long process of rebuilding their civilization. Not all of them. No, but the ones we saved will remember, and they'll tell their children. And those children will tell their children. Humanity just became part of Velthrin history. 2 days later, Day One stood before the Velthrin Council. His arm was in a cast. He had a plasma burn scar on his face. He wore his uniform, which was still stained from the fighting. He hadn't wanted to change it. It felt important to show them what the fight had cost. Thelvora addressed him. She had been elected to speak for all Velthrin. Captain Day One, representative of humanity, we asked the galaxy for help. Only you answered. The Council debated. You acted. We lost billions, but because of you and your crew, millions survived. How can we ever repay this debt? There is no debt, Daewon said. His voice was hoarse from exhaustion. You called for help, we came. That's what friends do. Friends, Thelvora repeated. We had been members of galactic civilization for 2,000 years. We had trade agreements and cultural exchanges and diplomatic ties. But in our darkest hour, only humanity came. Only humanity called us friends. She touched her hand to her heart. The Velthrin Collective wishes to propose a formal alliance with humanity, not as junior partners, not as clients, but as equals. We offer our science, our culture, our worlds. In return, we ask only for your friendship. Daewon looked at Jiwoo, who was standing beside him. She nodded. They had talked about this during the trip back. The people of Earth accept your offer, but we want to add something. We want to teach you how to defend yourselves. The Crawl will come back eventually. When they do, you need to be ready. We'll train your people, share our military knowledge, make sure you never have to watch your children die helplessly again. You would give us the secrets of your warfare? You're our allies now. We don't keep secrets from allies. Thelvora's eyes filled with the Velthrin equivalent of tears. We have learned much about humanity this week. You are violent and gentle, aggressive and protective. You fight with rage but care with tenderness. You are the most confusing species we have ever met. That's a fair assessment, Daewon admitted. But you are also the most dependable. When someone calls for help, humanity answers. That is your nature. We are honored to call you friends. The news spread through the galaxy fast. Every species learned about what happened in the Velthrin system. One human ship, one crew. They had held off the Crawl swarm long enough for reinforcements. They had saved tens of thousands of civilians. They had taught a peaceful species how to fight. And they had done it all because someone called for help. Some species were inspired. Others were frightened. The Crawl marked humanity as a threat species. The Galactic Council started reassessing their opinion of these young upstarts from Earth. But for the Velthrin, the message was clear. Humanity could be trusted. When things got bad, when hope seemed lost, humans would come. 3 months later, Daewon and his team were back on Earth. They had received medals, been called heroes, been interviewed by every news organization on the planet. They hated all of it. They were sitting in a bar trying to process everything that had happened. Taeyang's arm was still healing. Young Mi still had nightmares about the children in those transports. Hyunsik was quieter than usual. Jiwoo organized her beer coasters by size, which was what she did when she was thinking too hard. Do you think it meant something? Young Mi asked. What we did? We saved 62,000 lives, Jiwoo said. That means something. But 3 billion died. We couldn't save them all. Daewon took a drink. No, we couldn't, but the ones we saved will rebuild. They'll have children. Those children will have children. Maybe in 1,000 years, the Velthrin will be stronger than ever, because we gave them a chance. The galaxy is different now too, Jiwoo said. Other species are talking about forming rapid response teams, copying what we did. Maybe we started something. Humanity showed the galaxy a different way, Hyunsik said quietly.